everybody, welcome back to Devils United. I'm back again with another preview against Manchester United and Nottingham Forest. And we have got Dan. Dan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And thank you very much for taking the time to come onto the channel as well.
It's right, thank you for having me on.
You're welcome. Before we get on to the game this weekend, we will go into the chat. I can see Rappy's already got a question as well, but we'll go into that a little bit soon. Good evening, Sophia. Thank you for coming in. I hope that you are well. Good evening, Statman. I hope you are well. Thank you for coming in. Snoppy GGG. Easy win for United. I don't think it's going to be easy with our injuries. And on top of that, over 80% of the points of the Forest this season have come from their ground. Got anything to add on top of that, Dan?
Our own form is better than our away form.
It is. Hey there, Reese. Thank you for coming in. Hope that you are well. Varanza could be missed for the rest of the season. Martin as well is really gone. Yep, he is out for 8 months from what I've read. Hey there, Rather. Thanks for coming in. I hope that you are well. And thank you as well, Reese, for writing that onto the channel. So from next Friday to Sunday, I will be raising money for children's liver disease for Stephen, who has sadly passed away in February. I'll be doing an Arsenal weekend. So please go and check that out. Go and donate. The link is in the community tab. And we have got Door on tour with us. Hey there, Mr. Door. I hope that you are well. Thank you for coming in. And Reese has got your link for your channel in the chat as well.
Cheers, Reese.
So we'll go on to Forest, and I'll just ask on how you feel like the season has gone for you so far.
I'll be honest here, it's been a bit of an up and down because we started quite brightly, lost a couple of games, won a couple of games, and we never found that consistency to be fair. And we started to lose a few games, lost to Man City and lost to Spurs, and we just went at a really low point against Leicester, lost 4-0, and that week got to be probably the worst week I had this season. Well, for a long while under Cooper, I thought, oh, Cooper might be sacked, this and that, and lucky enough, Mariakis gave him a new contract, and that sort of like lifted everyone. And from then to like the World Cup, we went on a really good run. We weren't losing as much. We're putting in much better performances. Got some really good wins against Spurs and Palace, which lifted everyone. And it's just a shame that that bit of form before the World Cup, just because of obviously we all know how the World Cup was, and it shouldn't have been played in November. But there you go. And after the World Cup, we're picking up some really good wins. I mean, we lost to you guys in the semi-finals and that first game back after World Cup, and our own form's been a key point this season. Just as you said earlier, it's just the last couple of weeks since like probably since we beat Leeds at home, our form not been the best, and we're not sure if it's the players or the January signings or we're just not gelling like we used to be before the World Cup. I know there've been like a lot of media talk about who we signed this summer and how many, but we needed to make them signings. And even I know Dor would say that same thing as me, but we needed to make them signings, knowing how bad our squad needed it, just because of the loan signings we had.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, Doug. Thank you for coming in. I hope that you are well. I agree with what you said about Nottingham Forest. I think some people had a mixture of where you was going to be. I think I predicted you to finish around 14th, and the reason why I said 14th was just based on the signings that you had. You signed a lot of signings, and I think in my opinion, a lot of people criticised Nottingham Forest for that, and I think what I don't think what people realised was the amount you actually lost in the summer, because you had to. I think you probably lost about, was it around 20 players as it was, and then on top of that, you need to strengthen in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think we lost around 21, 22. Then we bought in 23 just in the summer, so and some of them, no disrespect to the players, but they weren't Premier League standard, or they weren't going to do us any good, to be fair. Some players wanted to leave as well because of they weren't getting the game time, so yeah, we lost a lot of players because of all that.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, do you think the amount of signings was the correct amount, or do you think you could have done it a different way?
Good question. I mean, I I did hope that we signed most of our loan players that we had last season because this just knew the club and they knew how people worked. But then part of me did think, did people want them? And it makes you think. And I'll be honest, yeah, I wish we didn't sign that many players in a short space of time. I think we could have built it not easily. That's probably not the right term, but we could have done it where we probably bought 12, 14 players this time, bought a couple in January, then built again in the summer instead of chucking it all together. To be honest with
hmm Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. I'll quickly go back to people who saying hi in the chat. Good evening, curlers. Thanks for coming in. I hope that you are well. I wonder if Casemiro might be in defence on Sunday's game. That's an interesting one. People are thinking Scott McTominay. Just because he has played in the centre back role for Scotland. But I think either way, if Casemiro was to go in that centre back position, then McTominay would need to go in the midfield. So it's one of them kind of risks we need to take. Good evening, Niall. Hope that you are well. Thank you for coming in. Luca, LOL about Martinez being out. That's not really funny, in my opinion. But it's up to you how you feel. We'll go now on to who do you feel like should been your sign of the season? Because one who really stood out for me was Kayla Navas.
you. You know what? I'll be honest with you. Getting Navas in, I couldn't believe it because um, then a couple of days before deadline day, they're saying that we were after him, but then it was down to that PSG, depending on if they wanted him to leave or not, because I think they had their third choice keeper, fourth choice keeper out on loan. So they were debating letting Navas out or not. And then the next question was, thinking Monday evening, like, how much you going to pay what wages, and that all that was agreed. Then Tuesday it was around lunchtime, 2 o'clock, and it got to a point where PSG didn't want to let him go, and the deal was literally dead. And I thought, right, okay, here we go. And it got to around 6 o'clock, and the deal was back on. And we're like, oh wow, and literally next when we signed him. So I thought getting Navas in was when we needed him. It was brilliant because Hendo got injured, and it's just unfortunate when he did. But for me, it's been Gibbs White massively, just because there's been a lot of talk about him joining us and the fee and how much Wolves wanted for him. And I always remember saying it to quite a lot of people on my channel, like, if we pay it, fair enough. But I wouldn't have paid 45 million for him. And I was saying like we could wait for him for next season, but when we got him in, I'm like, that gonna be a signing of the season, like for me. Um, and to be fair, it's paid that price tag back for me already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what is another one, Jesse Lingard. He obviously ran his contract up at Manchester United. From what we heard, is he getting higher wages at Forest?
Well, there was been a lot of talk just as the time for Forest saying we're going to be on 200 grand a week, and I was like, that's a lot. But it turns out that a couple of days later, when he signed that, he's only going to be on 85 grand a week. But then, if you're going to get performance related bonuses and other bonuses, it could go up to 115 grand a week. Um, but I know Lingard it made national thingy because a lot of West Ham fans on Talksport weren't happy and they made a big deal out of it.
Yeah, sounds like that is the case. It's Talk Sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey there, Andrew. Thank you for coming in. I hope that you are well. So I just want to have a little bit of a touch on as well with the home form for Nottingham Forest, is because a lot of people have said with Forest is that uh coming into the season they're going to make it a bit like a fortress at the City ground, and I think that's definitely something that you have done.
Yeah, we have done since Cooper came in, really, when we was in the Championship. That when Cooper got his main 11 last season, he got the fans straight on their side. His side straight away, just because of how he was talking, and he's literally saying that he's embracing this way with what we won and what we done under Clough, but he wants to create our own history with him, and he literally embracing everything from like the history to the fan base and saying how good the fan base is and how he wants the fan base to be, and just that connection since he's been here, it just made their own place a fortress. And even back in the last season when we're going up, the fan base just been the 12th man, and it's gone into this season because I mean, not many Premier League grounds have that sort of atmosphere where you feel like, oh wow, we're coming here. I mean, even Klopp said it when we played them in the cup last season. It felt like European night just because how it was. So, and for Klopp to say that, it's who's played in Germany, played in a big cups, like you're like, oh wow. So yeah, the home form and the home atmosphere, it's really good, and it's one of them ones where as well that we do actually get behind the team, which is brilliant because obviously it lifts the players.
hmm what made me laugh? I watched this video from when you played against Manchester City, and it was the home fans chanting to the Man City fans, "You can't chant that you've got a Champions League," and they chanted back saying, "You won. The last time you wasn't even born when you won the Champions League," and you're just both chanting back at each other. I found it
Yeah.
really funny.
Oh, it's funny, and Man City fans were giving us all the stick, and we were giving it back. It was really good, and you know what? Even when you look at that video, there's another video that went around after when we scored, and all you see Hendo, I want a Rooney, and someone else proper like chanting to the Forest fans, and even Hendo doing it, and I loved it because the players were getting involved with it, and Man City just went full on quiet.
Sounds like Man City, that's for sure. And
Yeah,
I think I remember seeing a picture of Dean Henderson. Right, I don't know if this was a true picture, but did he swear at the Man City fans after the game?
yeah, yeah. He did, and I think Lingard was on the touchline as well, and he was going ballistic as well.
Mhm.
And honestly, it was hilarious.
Hey there, Steve. Thank you for coming in. I hope that you are well. Curlers have said the fact Forest are fighting relegation might work out for United. They will be pushing to win. Their run is a nightmare. I actually look at that and I think that's a really good point. A lot of teams, but you've not really seen that are fighting relegation from 12th to 20th. Everyone is fighting the relegation. And do you think, knowing the situation where Forest is, do you think that's gonna put you at more of an advantage?
It's one of them ones. I think if it's anything that it will be us fighting relegation, and don't. and having the home crowd as well, just to make it giving us that sort of like push to win it. I mean, I know Man United fighting for that top four, but I mean, both teams will be under pressure because they're going to be the Sunday game, last Sunday game, so they're going to be watching everyone else before we get to play.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you 100%. I know you've already touched on about Steve Cooper. He extended his contract, and I think that brought a surprise by a lot of people. And I think as well, on top of that, a lot of other fan bases were praising Nottingham Forest for extending Steve Cooper's contract because I done a debate show on my channel a few months ago. Is sacking managers becoming the norm in football?
Um,
I do believe it is, and I think to extend Steve Cooper's contract is giving that little bit of faith from the board, from the ownership to Steve Cooper. And do you think that he's going to be here to stay for quite a while?
I hope he does because, I mean, Forest since buying Clough really, we just had a revolting door. Not many managers, bar probably Frank Clark, Billy Davis, first time. I've said first time, it was second time it went a bit Lulu. Calder Wood, they've not really been here for longer than a season. Well, sadly, Lamouche here. They've not been here for longer than a season. They've been like sacked halfway through the season. So for me to have Cooper extending his contract, it's definitely that confidence because what he has done to the club, I mean, took us from having a worst start in history, 100 years actually, to taking us up, not even with his own squad to refer because he'd done it on Hooton's squad, then they brought in a couple of signings in January last year, then you have to rebuild a new squad. So for the hierarchy to actually give him a new contract, just go to show how much they rate him. And obviously quite a few clubs are sniffing around him, and I feel like clubs nowadays they're just sacking managers straight away for no reason. And I feel like fair enough, managers set teams up to play and all that and do the training, but it's the players that lets them down. Um, and I always said it, so I think without a shadow of doubt that other teams need to be looking at Forest to be like, oh, if they're going to be backing their manager, we should. And look at Arteta at Arsenal. I mean, they could have sacked him quite a few times, but they stuck by him. And you look at them now, you're like, you didn't expect that. So totally agree with you that clubs need to be backing their manager and let them do their jobs. Because I mean, the amount of money that they spend, it's unreal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if he did get sacked, I think it would be very unfair.
Mm.
Just because I think for me, it's his first season in the Premier League. I think he's done a good job of what he has done. I think he's made not that the fan base wasn't reunited, but I think he's brought real belief to the Nottingham Forest fans. And I think really, I don't think fans have seen that since I'm gonna say it for Mr. Dorr, Sir Brian Clough, because
Yeah.
Mr. Dorr will not let me go if I don't say that. And I just think like for me, it's very hard to build your best 11 when you have so many players.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's been unreal, and I think he knows his best 11, and obviously, you know more than I do. Premier League, it's a very different ball game to the Championship. I mean, Championship toughest league in the world, but and obviously more games, but the Premier League it's different, and it's you got to try and find that blend between playing your best 11 to sometimes have to change it.
Mhm. Yeah, you can't continue to keep that same starting 11, especially knowing that you went into the Carabao Cup FA Cup final, knowing I don't think people was expecting Nottingham Forest to do that. You was playing in the FA Cup, and I think to play in three competitions including the Premier League, as well as having postponements due to the World Cup, due to as well the passing of the Queen. It's going to be very, very hard, and you need to have that squad depth, and that's why you're seeing a lot of teams who are struggling like Southampton, struggling like Leeds, because they don't have that squad depth.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it took its toll on quite a few teams. I mean, this season, when you look at like Leicester, how well they done last season, and this season they've gone downhill. Like Leeds, who's gone downhill, and Southampton, and I mean, it does take its toll, and I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree with that. What do you think the starting 11 is going to be in the game? I've seen a few different kinds of formations that Steve Cooper has been using, and I think from what I've watched of Nottingham Forest, I think the 4-3-3 suits you best.
Yeah, it has done this season. I mean, we started with a 3-4-1-2 or 3-4-2-1, whatever way it done, but then we changed to a 4-3-3, and that with the players that we had, it suits us better with the players. I feel like it'd been that fast and go anyway, because obviously with Endo being injured and legible. I think the back four will probably have Williams, Felipe, Worrell, and Bitofalo, especially with Lady being out injured and Nick Hart. The midfield three, I think Fuller will come back instead of Shelby. I think after Shelby's mistake last week, I think he needs to be brought out the squad just because of amount of criticism and that. I think Fuller for me, he get a lot of criticism for because apparently goes missing, which he does, but for me, he does the simple stuff, which is for me it's right because it keeps the ball moving and yeah, if enough you don't go into 50-50 challenges, it keeps the um, ball ticking. I think he'll go with Danilo. It came in January from Brazil, and I'm surprised no one had picked him up because he has got that really big talent. Yeah, Dawn knows as well. I'm number one. I've put that one out. But Danilo, he has got a raw talent that is really, really good. And Mangala is good at being my midfield three. Then the front three be Gibbs White, Brennan Johnson, and Awane. Because Awane's just coming back from injury, and with him being like big and tall and that, he holds the ball up, and we've not really had that outlet since he got injured. Brennan Johnson, obviously, he's got that pace and he can feed off Awane, and Gibbs White is just that sort of like talisman for us, in a way.
I really like Brennan Johnson. Before you got promoted into the Premier League, I thought he was absolutely spectacular. As you said, he's pacer. He's brilliant. I think for me, not many defenders are able to manage Brennan Johnson just because he's able to. He's fantastic on his one-on-ones. I don't see too many crosses of Brennan Johnson, so I don't know whether if that's kind of a weakness of him and he prefers to cut in, but he's been your main goal scorer this season, and I think he's been a real threat for the forward line.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really that sort of window that crosses because he likes to get behind and get goals. I mean, that's Brennan all over it. Um, I mean, there was a game earlier in the season. I can't remember what game it was. Um, he went for the shot instead of cross to Ronnie, and he got absolutely tortured by the Forest fans for quite a few times. And then we played Southampton away, and he passed it to Ronnie, and he scored, and we're all like, "Oh wow!" So yeah, in a crossing person to be fair, but what he does bring to the team, like nullifies his crossing, if I'm being honest here. But since after the World Cup, he turned it on. Even last season, it weren't really Cooper found his best position, and since January last year, I think he got like 15, 16 goal assists or goals from January. So, and he has this season because he scored twice against Leicester, twice against Everton, and yeah, he just brings a lot more to the team than a lot of people do see. But I think he will do. Hopefully, he does something on Sunday, but it's depending which Johnson turns up.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that, and I think for me with Brennan Johnson, I think he's definitely going to be one of the main stars in the Wales national team. I'd say coming into probably the next 5 years, and it wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised in the next 3 years, for instance, you're going to see the likes of maybe Liverpool bidding for Brennan Johnson.
Yeah, definitely. I think Newcastle were after him last summer, but not this summer just gone, summer before, and I said straight away that if he went to the Premier League then, they would go missing because he wouldn't be playing with us. He did the right thing by saying with us last season because he got a full season in the Championship and he's shown that quality that he did have. And now this season, yeah, it took him a while to get going, but since the World Cup, he's showing that bit more of that quality and he's getting that learning curve that if he would have went that summer when we was in Championship, he wouldn't have got it.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I think another player who I really, really rate, who I think has been fantastic for Nottingham Forest this season as well, is Serge Aurier. I think he has
Yeah,
been an absolute rock in that defence there for Forest because I'm looking at when I look at Forest centre backs, they remain the same as the Championship days, and I'm not saying like that's a bad thing, but it can be a little bit risky. You've seen Brentford done it; they've done a good job. You've seen Leeds; they've done it, and the first season was good, second season not good, and I think it's been a little bit of a mixture for Forest. But I think to have Serge Aurier on the right back role, I think it's really helped the whole defence.
yeah, definitely. I mean, even back in the last season when we had World Cup, McKenna, I always called it the Great Wall of Nottingham because just how they defended and when we played Fulham away last season when we beat them 1-0, I mean, them three that night were just magnificent with what they did. This season, I think more with Cookie that he got fantastic, more with the pace from the attacking side of things from the Premier League teams, and no disrespect to Cookie because what he's brought to the team with his experience and his leadership been brilliant, but with his sort of like pace, it got fantastic and went to about four with McKenna and Worrell, and I mean, they've both sort of been fantastic in different ways. And for us to bring Felipe in January, it's just took us to that next level. And going back to the question about Aurier, when we brought him in the summer, he had that bit of a bad reputation from when he was at Spurs. Um, but he's just been amazing at right back. And I thought Nico Williams might have been first choice with Aurier been second, but Aurier just came in and just stole the show at right back with some of the things he done, and you can see why Spurs is by him, but I mean he is really really good.
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, Nico Williams, he has been a bit of a disappointment
Mm.
coming to Forest because I think people was expecting a lot more from him.
Yeah, I did, and I'll be honest with you, with Nico, I feel like we brought him in more because when we played with 3-5-2, we need our wing backs. Let's say with Lodi, and we brought him in as a wing back. So I feel like Nico, when we went to back four, he's been fantastic a lot more defensively, vulnerable. Where same as Lodi, but Lodi developed his defensive side really well, where Nico hasn't. So that way, it came into always strength because he'd been trained up as a fullback, not a wing back. So and that's really it, really.
We'll go into some of the questions because I know that we did have a lot of questions. So we'll start off with the first question from Rabbi. Will Forest be able to take advantage that Man United have injuries? I'll go with you first on that, Dan.
I think, especially with you two not, with you guys not having your first choice centre halves, especially having Lindelof and Maguire. I think if Brennan Johnson is on form on Sunday, I think he will get the better off Maguire outside of that. Not saying that Maguire is awful, but it's just his pace that would do him. Whereas Rashford, obviously since the World Cup and what Ten Hag's done to him, for us, not seeing Rashford play is a bonus. In not saying that is, didn't want him to play because I love watching Rashford play, but when you look at it in another way, it's good. And I think you're obviously Martinez and Varane, it is a big loss. So I think if I don't utilise it, I'd be worried.
I think, yeah, Forest definitely do need to take the advantage. I think Rashford's going to be out, so most likely it's going to be Rashford, Martial, and Anthony line up forward three. The only good thing is that Bruno's still in the squad. I think if Bruno wasn't in the squad, there'd been nothing there to really fight for. There isn't no one there who could really create for Manchester United. So I think that's one advantage at least. I think though it is going to be Maguire and Lindelof partnership, but I have a feeling Casemiro may drop back to the centre back. He has played there a few games, and he was very good playing there for the few games. So that could be a potential option as well, or McTominay as a centre back. We're gonna have to think of something, especially coming to Brighton next week because Maguire suspended, Varane and Martinez injured. So Lindelof's our only fit centre back, which is mad.
I think that you guys having Casemiro back is massive because I think obviously as you guys seen start your season, he needed that sort of Casemiro player, and obviously since he came in, he's just been that sort of glue to your squad. So getting Casemiro back, especially for Sunday, for you guys will be massive. Whereas for us, we're like, right, okay, that's one main player there where we have to look at as a potential threat, especially with him, Bruno, Sancho, Anthony, and Martial.
Mm-hmm. Hey there as well to Liam. Thank you for coming into the chat. I hope that you are well. We'll go on to the next question now from Reese. What's your thoughts on Forest's first season back in the Premier League? Are you exceeding expectations? And last question, what's your thoughts on Steve Cooper?
Um, it's sort of like my thoughts is it's what I expected at the minute. Yeah, fair enough for fighting relegation, but like I was spoke about earlier, but especially before the signings we have to make and that, I thought we've done really well to be fighting as well as we are done, and having that cushion before we got dragged back into the relegation zone. We're all exceeding expectations. I think we are. I think a couple more wins, and I think if we finish anything above 16th, that I'd be exceeding it more for me. But I know many Forest fans will say 17th. I'd be happy, but I think with our attacking play, I think we should be higher, and I think far we could have been higher. I think there were some stats about far where teams would be if they didn't get involved. So, thoughts on Cooper. I mean, he's super Cooper for me. Like for what he has done to the club and the city, and how he rejuvenised the club. I mean, I'm really happy for him, and that um, he's just a top man to listen to because he speaks with honesty and he can see he cares about the club and how he talks about the players as well. really, really great to see. And he knows when the team don't turn up, he'll say it as it is. But when he knows that the players need like on around them, he just gives them. And I can't fault the bloke anymore. To be fair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. Question from Rebbe. Do Forest have enough to win this game? Yeah, absolutely. I think they definitely do have more than enough to win this game. They've got, I think they've gelled together as well, really well, especially at home. So I don't see why they couldn't win.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, with the I know people say now own form and the fan base being the 12th man. I mean, I completely agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Um. Okay. Question from Reese. What's your thoughts on two lone goalkeepers? Do you think it's excessive?
Well, that's a good question. That is. I'll be honest with you. When we bought Hendo in, I was really, really happy. I felt like a top goalkeeper, especially for the lower half of the Premier League table. Billy Hendo in massive. Um, and when he got injured, I thought, Ennis, right, okay. We gave him a few games and it not worked out, so I wasn't sure how long Hendo was going to be out. So, really now if I saying, I don't think it's excessive to be fair. I think we needed to do it because of we didn't have the quality for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I read about Henderson. He was out, so he didn't know how long he was going to be out for. And say, for instance, anyway, is like now Henderson can't play in this game coming into the weekend anyway. So you needed that little bit of quality because the game at home, when we won 3-0, it was massive mistakes from Wayne Henderson.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that no goes against Hennessy, but I just feel like with his age and it's sort of past it, especially to play in the Premier League. Maybe lower down the leagues, he might be able to play another season. But yeah, bringing Navas in, it just bring that bit more pedigree to the team.
Mm-hmm. Hey there, Dad. Thank you for coming in. I'm very well, thank you, and I hope you are well also. Hey there, Vincent. Thanks for coming in. I hope that you are well. The butcher's out till the end of the season. I've heard 10 months. I've heard also Varane could be out till the end of the season. And hey there, Ring Laura. I hope you are well. Thanks for coming in. Can't help but feel like the only way this could be any worse is if De Gea it gets injured. Don't say that, Ring Laura. I'm not prepared for no Jack Butler not. I'm here.
That says it all.
Honestly, right. Obviously, we had the Bracker on loan, didn't we? And I was there thinking, I never want to see the Bracker ever again in a Manchester United. He angered me after that Burnley game. Um, Hey there, Football Power Hour. I hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Big up. I'm still subscribed like Luca. Yeah, and I've got Football Power Hour as well coming on Tuesday for the Seville preview. So we'll as well quickly do some more questions. Question Mays, do you think United have an issue with finishing games off early when they're ahead? I would agree with that, Ravi, and I think this is what I've always said is 1-0, 2-0 leads are always less comfortable than a one goal lead. And the reason why I say that is look at that Seville game. We really dropped off going into that second half. We expected, we brought on the subs. We're thinking that we'll just control the game and end up being at 2-0. And that shouldn't be the case. It's not about away goals anymore. It's about the amount that you're gonna score in the two legs. So I think, in my opinion, Manchester United played very, very silly, especially though Bruno Fernandes is going to be suspended coming into the Europa League second leg. But I think we definitely do have an issue with the goal scoring this season. We're overly reliant on Marcus Rashford to score the majority of the goals. I'm not going to keep repeating about Anthony, but he's a very greedy. Greediness isn't always the best thing either. It's good to be greedy at time to time, but when you're shooting from long distances and you're missing by a country mile, and you see players like Martial or you've got Rashford or you've got Sancho who's clear of the goal, that's when you say it's greedy, and that's when you say it's selfish.
I will agree with that one because Forest done it quite a few. They did it against Bournemouth earlier in the season. We had 2-0 lead and we lost 3-2. So, and we had games, especially against Spurs at home, where we must have had 10 chances and we didn't finish them off. So, I completely agree with what Ravi said and what you said there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Rabi's gone for a 2-1 win for Man United with Forest to score first. I hate it when Ravi predicts us to win. Rather, I will tell you about Ravi. He literally, every time he predicts something, it's always the complete opposite. So he always used to predict us to lose. Then we went on a winning streak, and now he's starting to predict us to win, and now we're losing. Ravi, what you doing? um, let's have a see. Reese has got a question for you, Dan. Do you think you've recruited well in terms of Premier League quality players?
Oh, that's a good question. I think in some areas we have, personally. I think Gibbs White right side that. I think I think Felipe since he came in. I think Mandwala. I think now he's adjusting. Carty. I think we have recruited some really good players, which are quality, whereas other players not really um, done well. So I think we have got some really good quality players, but others not really lived up to the expectations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. How long is Rashford injured? Um, I think Rashford's supposed to be out at least for a few games. So he's not going to be back for Forest. Maybe hoping Brighton FA Cup, but I think it's looking doubtful at the moment. Rather thoughts on the loan players that's coming for United. Weghorst, I think he's just one of them. No one expected anything from Weghorst. But I do think probably from the World Cup he was potentially a bit overhyped by the Manchester United fans at first, because he scored 2 goals against Argentina. I think for me though, he does have it all apart from the goal scoring ability. But you're a striker, you need to score. I've never seen a striker who's worse in the air of a Weghorst, but. As a bit, sir, I think his quality. I'd sign him on a permanent if it's 20 mil. But in but to be honest, they are loan signings, and I think it's hard to fall in love with loan signings.
Yeah, I agree with that. What that last comment.
Yeah, you've had it as well with James Garner, because I know Nottingham Forest fans were very fond of him.
Yeah, we loved him to be fair, and it just how he played and that he's Jimmy Garner for you like all day, and I would loved him to come back permanently, but I mean, it just depend. It was just depending on what Ten Hag wanted to do with Jimmy more than out, and I think he wanted to see if he could break in, and it just by the time he got made available, we signed some players already, so it would have been difficult for him. But it just I always got that goal against Huddersfield in the final, and he had the Forest badge like that. Literally held it and went like that to Huddersfield fans, which I love to refer.
Mm-hmm. Hey there, Static. Thank you for coming in. I hope that you are well. And Daz has got the 2-0 for Man United. Anthony to score both. That would surprise me if he did. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you, Dan, for coming on. It's been a great show.
So thank you for having me on it. Really enjoyed it.
So have I. Would you like to shout out your socials?
Yeah, sure thing. So as you can see, my YouTube channel's Talk Forest TV. We're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Um, we do post a lot of socials and that, and do quite a lot of things. We do previews, reviews, news shows about everything what's going on at Forest, and that. So yeah, TFTV.
Oh, great. Thank you very much for coming on. I've put your link in the description below as well as your Twitter handles. So if you haven't already, go and subscribe to Dan's channel, Talk Forest TV. I'll be next live now on Monday. I'll be doing a preview for the Manchester United women's game as they take on Arsenal. So that's going to be a great game. Plenty to chat about. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to both me and Dan, and we'll see you all on Monday. Have a lovely weekend. Bye bye.